Hi, I'm coming to you live from my kitchen to read to you the real version of Island of the Blue Dolphins. So, this is a book that we have in our class. It's called The Lone Woman of Ghalas, and it is by an author named Rice D. Oliver. And so, this is a lot of the true information. Here's Winston. This is the true story. Oh, Percy's crying. Do you want to come up here too? Do you want to come up too? Jump up. Jump up. You got this. Okay, here's Percy. Hello. 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 Say hi. 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 They're never happy unless they're interfering with filming. This is why we do Zoom at school, because they had a hard time with Zoom last year. Huh. They were not good Zoomers. All right, so anyhow, this is the true story of Juana Maria, the woman that lived on San Nicolas Island. And so I like to have my class read this. Unfortunately, there are only 6 copies of this, and it's really old. I'm pretty sure it's out of print because it's a super old book. And so since we only have 6 copies, I figured that I would read it to you. And what we're going to do is you're going to compare the true story of Island of the Blue Dolphins to the fictional story of Island of the Blue Dolphins. All right. So this is called The Lone Woman of Ghalas. Far from the shores of Ventura County in California is the island of San Nicolas. The Indians call it Ghalas. It is 70 miles from the coast. It is the last land off the coast, a lonely place where the winds blow hard and only the sound of birds and seals and the crashing of waves is heard. The seals, sea lions, sea elephants, and birds like this loneliness. It means that they can be safe from the harm of people. Large groups of them have made their home on the beaches of the island. So here is where the island is located. Here's our cat Eugene. He's a very loud meower. He's thinking that it's dinner time, but he's really an hour from dinner time. He likes to warn me about an hour early that he's hungry. For hundreds of years, the people of Ghalas lived on the island. They had learned to make homes from brush and driftwood. They knew where to find bird eggs and how to kill a few animals for food and clothing. The playful sea otter lived in large numbers in the sea around the island. The sea otter lived on the abalone shellfish it pried from the rocks. It could be seen by the Indians as it floated along on its back, pounding the shellfish on a small rock it carried on its tummy. It would pound the shell until the meat broke loose and then enjoy a delicious meal. The Indians ate the abalone too, but they did not mind sharing it with the sea otters. The sea otter had warm fur the Indians could use for clothing whenever they killed one. After many years of living on the island, the Indians had learned to live with the resources of the island. The Indians built boats and traded with Indians on Santa Catalina Island, many miles away. They made their boats from driftwood much the same way as the Chumash did. So the Chumash, or the tribe that's located on mainland California, like right across from San Nicolas Island. They made their boats from the driftwood much the same way as the Chumash did. Sometimes they made boats from the logs that drifted ashore too. All of this changed. The Russians came with their Aleut friends from Alaska. They came to kill the otter for its fur. They killed the seals too. They did not want enough fur for their own clothes. They wanted all the fur. They did not care if the Indians needed the otter and seals too. They wanted to sell the fur to people in Russia and Asia. When the Indians were in the way, they killed them too. The Americans came from Boston. They brought Kodiak Indians and left them on the island to take whatever otter and seal fur was left. More Indians were killed. Soon there were only about 25 Indian people of Ghalas left on the island. And this is a little illustration showing them living on the island. The Padres of Santa Barbara Mission called the island San Nicola, and the people were called the Nicoleños. They seemed to be the only ones who cared about the few people left. They asked an American sea captain to take his boat to the island and bring the people to the mainland for safety. In 1835, the ship came to the island for the people. When it arrived, a great storm came. The winds blew so hard that the ship was in danger of being sent upon the rocks. The captain quickly had the people of Ghalas pack their things and get on the ship. "We must sail now, or we will be cast upon the rocks, and our ship will sink. Hurry, hurry," he urged. The people hurried aboard the ship. "Wait, where is my baby?" one young mother called. She thought it had been brought aboard the ship by another person. She could not find it on the ship. She became upset. "It must still be on the island. We must go get it," she pleaded with the captain. "We cannot go back now," he said. "The ship will be wrecked, and we could all be killed." He promised they would sail away from the island and would come back the next day and search for the baby. The young mother looked at the island. She knew the great dangers that were there for her child. The storm would blow the hut in on the baby. The wild dogs could harm it. There was no one to hold it when it was crying. Who would feed it? She saw that the ship was leaving the island. She must get to her baby now. The waves had become very large. The wind was blowing hard. The island was getting farther away. "I must go to my baby," she called, and she threw herself into the ocean. The huge waves tossed her about, and she had trouble keeping her head above the water. She began to swim and swim and swim. Her arms ached. She swallowed great gulps of salty air. The people on the ship looked at her small body in the water. They could see her head among the waves. "She will never make it." "Not even a strong sailor can swim in that kind of sea," they said. The captain promised he would come back and look for her. He sailed for San Pedro with the rest of the Indians. The young mother finally made it to the beach. She had been tossed about by the waves. Her body ached, but she made it to the shore. She was too tired and sore to stand, but she forced herself to her feet. She hurried to the place where she last saw the child. There was no sign of it. She searched the beaches and the canyons. She looked every place. After many hours of looking, she knew that the baby would never be found alive. She fell to her knees and started to sob. Her tired muscles gave up, and she lay back in the tall grass and shut her eyes. For many hours she thought about her baby and what could have happened to it. She started to cry and cry. She cried until there were no more tears. Then she thought about herself. The ship was gone. Would it come back for her? Would she be alone here forever? "Maybe they will come for me when the storm stops," she thought. There was not another person left on the island. The Russians were gone, the Aleuts had left, the Kodiaks were gone, and now all of her people were gone. She had come back for her child, but it was gone too. Now there were only the birds and seals and wild dogs and the young mother left on San Nicola Island. She had become the lone woman of Ghalas. The storm stopped the next day. She watched for a sail. None ever came. After many days she gave up hope of being taken away from the lonely island. She knew now that she would have to remember everything she had learned as a child. If she was to have a home, she would have to make it for herself. If she was hungry, she would have to hunt for food. She would have to fish, catch crabs or shellfish, dig roots, find water. If she wanted warm clothes, she would have to make them from bird skins or furs. If she wanted a fire, she would have to start one herself without matches. Her love for her child had brought her to the island again when all of her friends were leaving. Now she would have to meet a very hard test to see if she could take care of herself on a lonely island. Would she pass the test? The captain of the ship had planned to return to San Nicola Island to see if the young mother had made it safely to the island and bring her to the Santa Barbara Mission. He never did. He had been sent to San Francisco, and his ship turned over as it entered the bay. The ship was lost. Now there wasn't another large ship on all the coast of Southern California. No one wanted to make the dangerous trip in the small Chumash boats. Most people thought she had drowned. That the young mother knew the island well. It had always been her home. Oh, I'm sorry. Most people thought that she had drowned, that if the young mother had made it to shore, she was alone and without any real hope of being saved. The young mother knew the island well. It had always been her home. She could remember all of the places where fresh water could be found. She knew the best rocks to search along the shore for abalone and other food from the tide pools. She had learned which plants were good for food. She knew how to make a hut from the things she found on the island. Before all of her people left, they had shared some of these jobs. She knew now that she would have to do them all herself. One of the first things she had to do was the hardest. She would have to make a fire to keep warm on the cold, foggy nights and to cook her food. This was something she had not done before. The fires had always been kept burning. There were no matches on Ghalas. Keeping the fires going was important. At night it could be cold on the island. Fires kept the wild dogs away from camp, too. The dogs had been left on the island by ships and had become wild and mean. We will stop right there. All right. You can watch the next part. Thanks for joining me.